All right, 11 o'clock on a Saturday. We got week 9 on tap today. I'm going to stall for a couple of minutes here. We'll wait for some more folks to join in. We're going to go over uh, late week movement. We're going to go over some injuries. There's a lot going on there. We're pretty deep into the season, so we've got some pretty high-profile people playing or not playing. A couple of surprises, in my opinion. Weather stuff, of course, as always. Going to cover a few games and Q&A. So if you have any sort of Q&A, just go ahead. I have the chat pulled up. I'll be watching it, so go ahead and throw it in there as we go, and I can certainly answer questions along the way. And then any questions you have about games I'm not going to cover today, feel free to throw those in at the end. If you're looking for leans, explanations of bets, anything like that, you can go ahead and throw it in here. But I also have my work at thelines.com. I do have upset alerts over there. That's been a really fun piece to write. And those scheduling spots, the underdogs are doing really well against spread. I believe we are 19, 10, and 1 against the spread this year on those. If you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat as we go. I will answer them. If you're new to the lines, if this is your first time either on our live stream here, you can also be a part of the community over at our Discord server. You can find me personally on X at Road to CFB and the Lines at the Lines US. If you're looking for a link for our Discord, I will post one over on my Twitter or X, and it's plastered all over our site. Also, be sure to check out our channel as a whole. If you're not already subscribed to us, please subscribe to us here on YouTube. You can check out other great shows, including Beat the Closing Number with Eli Hershkovich and Mo Nuara. They do an awesome job over there. I know that's what people love looking forward to. And of course, the Lines Megapod with Steven Andrus and Matt Brown. And then my college football podcast, which I'm usually with Kelly Ford, but I do these Saturday morning shows solo. You can find that over on our YouTube as well. We cover weeknight. I cover Tuesday. This week it'll be Tuesday and Wednesday Maction that I'll be breaking down over on our main channel here. And then Kelly will join me for weeknight and Saturday slates as he usually does. All right, let's go ahead. Get into our late week movers. Some interesting notes here, and I'm hoping we can maybe pull some context from what the market is trying to tell us here. First and foremost, Louisville was sitting at -4 all week. We saw maybe -4.5 kind of pop. Late in the week, though, we're seeing -6, -6.5. I did see the report that Riley Leonard is, quote, a game time decision. Market's telling me he's out. We touched on it in our main show here that I think that the market was pricing as if Riley Leonard was at least going to play a little bit. Even if he does get in, I don't know how effective he's going to be, especially running. It's high ankle sprain. He suffered it like 3 weeks ago. That's usually a 6-week recovery. So even if he's in, I'm on the Louisville side. I took Louisville at -4. That's obviously not available. If you can find a live line, maybe if you still want to take it under 6, I actually don't mind that because it is within a score there. Louisville at home. They have the rest advantage. And of course, Riley Leonard is either not in or certainly not 100% if he is in. So that's one to monitor, especially in the next hour here, see what kind of action that takes. Colorado, if we're looking later on the line, briefly touched -14.5, and then UCLA money came in and pulled that back, but it's still really far down from where it was earlier in the week. I think it was UCLA, I think was -17, maybe even touched 18 for a minute. That, of course, is down. A lot of Colorado money coming in on this one on the road. Do note they do have a quarterback change. So they're changing away from Dante Moore. And to be honest, I don't think that's such a bad thing. Dante Moore has shown flashes of talent, but overall, he's been pretty bad. Colin Schlee, I believe the Kent State transfer, should be back from injury, and he gives them a pretty solid starter, I think. So I would probably I would fade the market on that one and probably back UCLA if you're looking for action in that game. Texas A&M, they took a lot of movement late week. I don't know if this is just a South Carolina's frauds type of thing, but yeah, that was purely market driven. I've not seen any updates to injuries on either side there. Kansas is taking money against Oklahoma. This one's interesting. I bet this one's game of the year preseason -6.5. Thought I was going to be really happy with the line. It reopens at 10. No, great. Some really nice closing line value, but it's actually been all Kansas late in the week. I've seen rumors. I don't love sharing rumors that are just completely unverified, but I have seen rumors on Twitter. The movement in the market feels like there may be some surprise inactives for the Sooners. I don't have inside information on that. Nobody's texted me that, but the fact that it's going against power ratings because everybody has Oklahoma, probably top 3 in their power ratings right now, myself included. And the fact that that Kansas is currently taking the money is something's up with Oklahoma. I would just keep an eye on that. I don't know what it is, but the market is certainly head scratching, and usually those late week head scratchers turn out to be pretty correct. And then we find out after the fact, like half the team has the flu and missed the game or whatever we're going on there. I'm also keeping an eye on the Florida Georgia line. It's been Georgia like all week long. It was Georgia minus 14.5 all week long. But then this really late week, I'm talking overnight last night action, Friday night action, it's very important. That money is very telling. Moved the line down to 14, even 13.5. I saw breach in some spots. So it does appear that Florida is the sharp side in this game. I don't know if that really means much. When I broke down the game myself, I said this kind of feels like a position where Georgia, even without Brock Bowers, puts their foot down and reminds everybody who they are, like they did against Kentucky. They take these SEC East rival or games seriously, and I think they will continue to do so. But again, the sharp money there is evidently on Florida, considering we're moving it through 14, which is a key enough figure to pay attention to. Moving forward to some injury notes on games that I'm not going to cover here in a few minutes. We have Will Rogers. It doesn't look like he's going to play. He did not play last week for Mississippi State. He is questionable. Tyler Van Dyke missed last week as well for Miami. He split first team reps this week, and he's seen wearing a knee brace. And now a knee brace doesn't mean that you're out or anything like that. But yeah, just keep an eye on whether he plays or not. I don't know that it matters this much for Miami this week against Virginia, although Virginia did surprise UNC last week. Quinn Ewers, he's not playing. He sprained his AC joint. He is not going the Saints route with Derek Carr, where they just kind of throw him in there and say, hey, play quarterback with a sprained shoulder. Ewers is out. Malik Murphy will be the guy, not Arch Manning. I know that's been the talking head point all week long is, when are we going to see Arch? I don't think we are, unless Texas blows them out. And even then, I don't know that they would put Arch Manning in there. JT Clark, DeCorian Clark for UTSA. He's considering a medical red shirt this season. He tore his ACL last year, and his rehab has been going, normal for a torn ACL, but apparently not as quickly as he thought here. That's a big loss for UTSA, and that offense has just not been the same this year since missing. Obviously, Frank Harris has been injured, and the receivers have been injured, and they had one transfer out here. But let's see. Auburn's starting center is out, and a freshman will be in his place. Starting freshman on the offensive line, if they're not these top 3 or 4 5-stars, always make me a little nervous, but especially the center, because the center is communicating what's going on. The line up and down is communicating to each other, but the center is really the captain of that. And if you have a freshman there, he's trying to point out coverages. Maybe he's going to lean more onto his veteran guards or whatever to point those out. But that is something I do think is notable. And last, this one really sucks just for action purposes. Miami of Ohio, their quarterback, Brett Gabbert, is out for the season. That really sucks. They have the Battle of the Bricks on tap, one of the better rivalries in the MAC against Ohio today. But he's done. So those are some of the injury notes that I will not cover in games here. I have a couple of questions here. Are you trying to bet Penix and McCarthy and Heisman odds? No. Bo Nix sitting at 28-1 at Caesars. Yeah, verify that Caesars price, of course. I do know that on a lot of aggregated power on odds boards, like we have at the lines, Caesar's feed is actually slow. So if you're seeing it on one of those, make sure you go into the app and double check that, considering it is so severely off. The Heisman is just so wide open right now. Bo Nix isn't a terrible choice, especially bet it today before this game happens, because one way or another, you'll know after this Utah game, if he goes in and beats Utah, that 28-1, if it is available, even shorter than 20-1, 18-1, or whatever he's sitting at, that's going to drop below 10 for sure. So yeah, I don't hate that. I just worry about his average depth of target, in that it's just so short. He lets the receivers work, which is fine in the offense, but historically, when I'm looking at guys that have won the Heisman, their ADOT's not usually below 10 or even 11 or 12. And Bo Nix is like the third shortest in the country. So that does hurt with narrative a little bit. And I know the voters aren't looking at ADOT, but they're watching him play and saying, okay, well, it's just kind of quick pass. That's not our Heisman kind of stuff there. How many sacks should are taking today? The UCLA defensive line is pretty nasty. If there was an over-under bet on that, I would probably bet the over on how many sacks he's going to take there. Okay, some quick weather stuff before I get into the games. We're looking at potentially a lot of snow for Air Force Colorado State. I don't know about y'all, but I love this first snow game of the year. Nothing quite like watching it. And they're talking 3, 4, 5 inches of snow in the Denver, Fort Collins, Boulder area. Yeah, that actually would have changed the calculus on that Colorado UCLA game. Is that if it was in Boulder, I'd probably be looking to fade UCLA. Some couple of cold games, and again, because it's early in the year, I know these teams are northern teams, but they're not exactly used to the freezing cold right now. But we're looking at Michigan State at Minnesota, New Mexico at Nevada, Purdue at Nebraska. Those are all going to be sub-freezing games that can slow offenses down, and we're already dealing with Michigan State, Minnesota, New Mexico, Nevada, Purdue, and Nebraska. So one competent offense of the group, and that being Purdue. Yeah, those are probably dead nut under games, especially with Minnesota. They've kind of been that way all year. Cold and rainy games. We have Cincinnati at Oklahoma State. The Pokes actually took a little bit of movement today off of 7. That kind of seems to be the buyback point is 7 and then 7.5 if you're looking at Cincinnati. We have Oklahoma at Kansas, Houston at Kansas State. I'm obviously a little bit more so worried about Houston than any of the other teams listed on there because we're talking about cold and rain. And you're coming from Houston, Texas, which experiences neither of those things on a regular basis. And then windy games, again, windy does affect point totals. So if you're looking at point totals, West Virginia at UCF and Virginia at Miami. And Virginia at Miami could be 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds. So if you're looking for unders just to play on the weather, or if you're considering possibly an over in either of those games, there's one for you. Those are the couple of win games. It's pretty well documented that the rain doesn't really affect games as long as it's not driving and downpouring. It's more so wind. So we're dealing with wind in the state of Florida today. Let's get in some of these games. UMass at Army. I'm going to start off with an absolute blockbuster. The Black Knights are 9.5-point favorites. This game kicks off in about 45 minutes here on CBS Sports Network. Carries an over-under of 49.5. It was 50.5. The under has been getting bet a little bit, and I'll get to probably why that may be here in a second. UMass does come into the game with a rest advantage because they're coming off their bye. If you go back to 1977, Army is outscoring UMass by an average score of 42-14, and they play semi-regularly, especially being two independents. So, it's just the style of play Army has, and UMass isn't exactly lining up the toughest defense in the country. Okay, so the reason that I think that this under is going back, and this was actually a play that I made earlier in the week because I thought quarterback Bryson Daly for Army was returning. His status has been downgraded a little bit for as much as downgraded statuses can be at mid-level college football. It's kind of maybe looking like he's not going to play. And I actually cashed out before the market moved at all. Cashed out an Army ticket. If you have an Army ticket and you want to let it ride, that's fine. If you're not sure how much Bryson Daly adds to the point spread, that's enough for me to have pulled my stake in that. Do note in the last 6 quarters that he has not played, Army did not score 1 point. I know this is UMass. That's probably not going to hold, but that's enough for me to be like, no, thanks. I don't want any shares in Army today because of that. That was kind of surprising because all week it was he's going to return. And all of a sudden today it's like, we're not really sure that he's going to return. So keep an eye on that. I don't want any part of Army with that. Even if they win, even if they cover the spread, it's going to be a little bit too sweaty for me, I think. All right, next game, we have Clemson, a 10-point road favorite at NC State. This game kicks off at 2 p.m. Eastern on the CW, our favorite college football channel, of course. It has an over-under of 43.5 points. So, Clemson, not exactly an offensive wagon right now. They're expecting a few points here. I did include Clemson in my upset alert article. This game is sandwiched in between Miami, which they lost in overtime, so it's not a letdown spot, but still, it's between Miami and Notre Dame. They lost in overtime last week. This is your second straight road game. They're also pretty beat up. Starting offensive lineman Walker Parks, he's been out since week 2, but it's been a will he, won't he return kind of situation. He's not returning for the season. Receiver Cole Turner was a pretty big part of this offense when he did play. I believe he went out week 4. He's also out for the season. Another receiver, Antonio Williams, is out a few weeks. Their starting safety, RJ Mickens, just got his appendix taken out, so he's not playing this week. And then 2 more defensive starters are also banged up. Clemson is hanging on, guys. They're 4-3. They're very hurt, and now they're going into this game to take on a team, and they're still favored by double digits. Man, I don't know about that. MJ Morris has taken over as a starting quarterback for NC State. In his brief time, he's thrown 4 touchdowns and 4 picks and completing just 57% of his passes. I know Brennan Armstrong was not playing very well, His receivers weren't helping him out a lot, but I don't think MJ Morris is the answer. I'm not entirely. I guess you're at a point, I guess, where you have nothing to lose if you're NC State for the rest of the year. So I understand making the change, but through 2 games, I've seen enough. I would rather have Brennan Armstrong in there, but they're not. But again, this is probably NC State with the points for me, just in the situation. Yeah, Clemson sandwiched in between Miami, Notre Dame, second straight road game, very hurt. That's going to be NC State with the points for me. If you're looking for action on that game, we have Marshall, a 3.5-point road favorite at Coastal Carolina. It kicks off at 6 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network. This game carries an over/under of 46 points. Last week, running back Rasheen Ali was a surprise inactive. Haven't heard anything from his camp, and all of a sudden they're just like, hey, he's not dressed today. That's when we found it out. Charles Huff repeatedly declines to give updates on him. I don't know if you saw, he had a funny back and forth exchange with one of the reporters asking if she's a better or works for FanDuel, asking about all of his injuries, but he declined to give any sort of injury updates on there. Just keep an eye out. If Rasheen Ali doesn't go, this Marshall offense is totally different. Just entirely, they don't have good enough quarterback play to make up for that, I don't think. Ali really is a game changer. Grayson McCall, he's not playing as well. We saw he was taken off in an ambulance last week. He turned out to be fine for as far as carted off the field in an ambulance fine can get. But he was released from the hospital later on. And yeah, he's not suiting up this week. I don't know when he's going to be back. But again, Coastal without Grayson McCall, they don't have that creative offense to just, he matters 7.5 points of the spread, at least. I think that's being conservative. Coastal Carolina is an absolute fade for me until Grayson McCall gets back. Yeah, we'll see about that. I don't know about this team. I want to take one game before I truly decide one way or another. But yeah, Coastal might be tough. That could be a season-changing injury. We have number 3, Ohio State, a 14.5-point road favorite at Wisconsin. Lots of road favorites this week in both college and the NFL, which is the upset central. But Ohio State at Wisconsin game kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC. This game carries an over/under of 45.5 points. Trevion Henderson, the Buckeyes, is expected to be back and at 100%. Emeka Egbuka did make the trip with the team. He is, we're going to see if he warms up, see if he goes. He's technically a true game time decision. Denzel Ward, same thing, made the trip. He's expected back, but we'll see. These are both players that could get into pregame warmups and not dress, or pregame warmups, go through their song and dance, and realize I'm still a little banged up. And of course, Ohio State's going to want them for the longer term rather than this game at Wisconsin. And on the other side, Tanner Mordecai, he's out for the near future at least. Broke his hand on, I believe it's his throwing hand too. So he isn't playing for a little while, hasn't been playing. That does make me a little worried for Wisconsin, because now they have a freshman starting at quarterback. It's going to be chilly. We're talking highs in the 30s for this game. If you've watched Ohio State football for the past couple of years, clearly I have been. They don't perform very well in those cold games. This isn't the Ohio State teams of the 2016, 17, 18, where they were, the tougher nose outdoor, drag you down and kind of beat you in a rock fight type of guys. This roster is a little bit more in tune for that. The defense has gotten a lot better, but again, they don't perform well in cold weather. At least they haven't recently. So I guess that's a product of bringing in a bunch of, SoCal kids. So just keep an eye on that. I don't know if that's really enough to move the line. And, it's been at 14.5 all week. The total did drop. It opened at 48.5, and that thing got cut so fast, probably because of the wind and the cold in Madison expected. Now it's down to as low as 43.5, or I'm sorry, it hit as low as 43.5. And then it got, that's where we saw the resistance point. Ohio State has won the last 9 meetings, including 3 Big Ten championships. This is a game that Wisconsin circles. It's, everyone gets Ohio State's best effort. It's, for the most part, it's everyone's Super Bowl on the season. Wisconsin is no exception, and they do not like Ohio State. This is a game where Camp Randall Stadium, it doesn't matter how cold it is going to be exploding. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. There's a little bit of hesitation for that in Ohio State, because we saw it when they went to Notre Dame, but they had a lot of representation out there. Wasn't nearly as cold. It'll be interesting to see how Ohio State comes out when it's cold. And Camp Randall's electric and it's under the lights. We're talking maybe 28, 32 degrees in this game. Just a situational spot that I don't love for Ohio State, but also I don't know that Wisconsin is good enough to drag them down and punch them in the mouth. So final game that I have on here before I will open up to every game left on the slate. I have number 11, Oregon State, a 3-point road favorite at Arizona. There's another road favorite for you. Game kicks off at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and has an over-under of 56.5 points. Jane DeLora did return to practice this week. I believe the report is that he is okay to go, but Noah Fafita took the first team reps. And why would you make that change? Fafita's the hot hand right now. You ride the hot hand. Arizona's been a completely different football team, maybe top 25, top 30 with Fafita in the lineup. So Jed Fish said he's not naming a starter, but again, all the points are pointing to Fafita being the starter today. You look at like SP Plus, Bill Conley has him in his top 25. Kelly Ford, who's usually on the show with me for the midweek and Saturday slates, he has them inside the top 35. But it's clear to me that the odds makers have been slow to adjust or over adjust, I guess is probably the worry with Arizona. The market has thoroughly corrected it because this line opened up at 8.5. I had to triple check that. I'm like, there's no way. That's got to be some sort of error in the report. It opened up at 8.5 at FanDuel. And it's just been all Arizona since. So that tells me that the power ratings that are being used to set these lines with Arizona may not be totally caught up. So when you're looking at opening lines tomorrow for future weeks, if you're quick to the window on Arizona, there may be some value to be had. Of course, we have to see how this game plays out and how that affects the power ratings moving forward. But yeah, the odds makers have been really slow to react to Arizona. And I think a lot of people have been because they've been surprised to see how good they are. But yeah, this is a completely different football team. Arizona and Oklahoma State too. Those are two teams we should be looking at in a different lens. Okay, that's the games that I have on here. I went through morning movers. I went through injury notes, weather, all that stuff, a few games. Now, I want to open it up to those of y'all that are watching here. Throw in questions about any sort of game that you have on here. I'll give you a few minutes. I'll answer anything. Open book, so fire away. Also, a lot of late Maryland money has been coming in. They were bet down to 14 flat this morning. I'm seeing 14 and a half, 15 now. And this is minutes before kickoff. So Maryland definitely taking the late sharp money there. Did you touch on Duke at all? So we did in our Saturday slate pod, our typical pod, but I can go over more stuff with that. I touched on it at the very beginning when I talked about movers. So Louisville was -4 all week long. They moved up to -6 on Friday afternoon. That tells me that there's larger limit sharp bets coming in on that. I pay attention to that, of course, a lot more than what happens earlier in the week. Riley Leonard, game time decision. So there is a possibility that he plays. That market movement is telling me he will not play. Even if he does play, I still have Duke derated about 3.5 points because he's not playing 100%. It's a high ankle sprain, a 6-week injury that he's trying to come back from in week 3 now. And of course, he's a terrific quarterback all the way around, great passer, but his biggest asset is his legs. And if he can't run because he's got a sprained ankle, that to me, derates his efficiency a lot. Tried it out last week, re-aggravated it, went out really quick. So I'm on Louisville. I'd probably still take them under a touchdown because I think they're a very good football team. The thing that I like bringing up is what would that spread have been if they would have taken care of business against Pitt? Which, by the way, I touched on upset alert. It was a classic trap spot. You just come off that big emotional Notre Dame win, and then you head into a Pitt on the road with the rest disadvantage, you get beat. That doesn't mean that they're a worse team or a bad team. I'm still treating them, pretty much the same as before that game. And to me, the line would be a lot higher if they had won that game. So that's why I'm on Louisville in that game. A&M -17, UCF -7. I did not touch on either of these games, but I will right now. I know A&M has been the big time favorite this week in the market. They were, I think, 15, if maybe even 14 and a half at open. So it's been all A&M all week. One injury. Let me pull up my injury spreadsheet here to look for. Xavier Legette. He is a game time decision and kind of trending toward maybe not playing. Obviously, in my opinion, the best player on South Carolina's roster. If he doesn't go, that's tough. They're already down Juice Wells. He's out for multiple weeks with a leg injury, so he's not in for this one. And I do think it's a lot of just market driven. Maybe South Carolina's a little fraudulent type of deal, and yeah, we'll see. I think A&M is probably the better side. It's not the best number we've had all week, but yeah, that's kind of the way that I lean on that. I think A&M's defense is enough to stifle South Carolina, but yeah, who knows? They did that turnaround last year, and who's to say why it is? There's obviously a lot of speculation going on right now about maybe who could have helped them, but South Carolina is prone under Shane Beamer to have those kind of performances. We saw it against North Carolina in the bowl game where they had no quarterbacks and beat the pants off them. They'll do that a couple of times a year where they just absolutely pop up and smash somebody. So, and then UCF. John Rice Plumlee looks like he was dressed and taking pregame warm-up. Still got that knee on or brace on the knee, so that is something worth looking at. Let me find their odds on here, so I have it. Yeah, here we go. Well, it is moving to 6.5. So if you're going to bet UCF, take a 6.5. I do see DraftKings, Bet Rivers, MGM. They're all a little juiced. It's kind of your tolerance on that, your preference. I'm not huge on taking minus 115 on a side. But if it is to get it under that 7, not the worst thing ever. I see a 6.5 at minus 110. If you have access to Bet 365, that's probably your best number there. Make sure you're shopping around because that's more important. Because now my analysis of UCF minus 6.5 is a lot different than minus 7. Minus 7 isn't the best number. You're getting I believe it's 14% is the bump on there to move through that key number. So make sure you're getting the best number. West Virginia has been a little fraudulent. They beat a TCU team that was broken, that still may be broken. That BYU game changed a lot of perspectives on TCU, and it shouldn't have because BYU is really, really bad. I don't know. That's a tough side. Again, if you're betting UCF minus 6.5, make sure you find that minus 6.5. Malik Murphy. There's I'll give you my non-objective take, and then my objective take, and then my subjective take. Objective take, big freak athlete, has a really live arm, looked amazing in Texas's spring game. Now, does that always translate over into the regular season? No. But I think he is fully capable, to be honest. Let's see. What did I downrate Texas? I think maybe 3 points, but, to the market, yeah, I haven't derated 3 points. So if you're looking at it that way, that's kind of his market worth. I'm not the only one that has -3 on them. My subjective take is he's going to be, I know he's denied it, but let's see what the NIL deals do to his opinion of moving away from Texas. There's a lot of teams out there that are going to want him. He could be a very prized transfer quarterback. And I'm speaking out of just personal bias that, Ohio State comes knocking and brings Malik Murphy. It certainly wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So very capable. BYU, they're already 20.5 point underdogs, 21 in some spots, but this could be full on blowout, like absolute butt kicking. Malik Murphy is fine. I think he's going to conduct the offense in a little bit of a different way than Quinn Ewers because he's a little bit better of an athlete, but I think more than capable, especially as a thrower. I will stay past 11:30 if we have the questions for it. 11:30 Eastern, I should say. Don't know where you guys are at. But yeah, if you have more questions, please throw them in here. I'll wait a couple more minutes. If not, we'll probably wrap up here soon. By the way, I still have not seen an update on why Kansas was taking so much market movement. They're on the field for pregame warmups. It's down to 7.5 at FanDuel, which is close to where the preseason game of the year number was at 6.5. And Oklahoma's power rating has upgraded probably more than any other team in the country this year. So I'm interested to see why the Jayhawks are taking all that money super late, especially since they didn't all week. Tells me something's up there, but I don't see any. I see reports of guys that are dressed. I don't see anything that says, oh boy, there's only 35 Oklahoma Sooners just for today's game. So keep an eye on that. Jalen Daniels is warming up, not starting. Windy. Okay, yeah, the weather may be taking that down. That's not so bad. Jalen Daniels isn't playing. I don't know that he's going to play the rest of this year. There's been talks about him wanting a medical redshirt, which is fine. Then come back next year. And then Cam Rising will have like a bunch of 28-year-old star quarterbacks in college football next year as all these guys return from injury. But don't sleep on Jason Bean. His EPA metrics and his like efficiency numbers are equal to that of Jalen Daniels. He doesn't quite have the big time throw ability as Daniels does, but Jason Bean is perfectly fine. Penn State. Yeah, that's coming down because there's some weather there. Penn State actually had a lot of guys that are on the injury report today. I think a surprising amount. Chop Robinson, notably, is not playing for them. And Indiana is one of those teams where they fired their offensive coordinator. They're in full, they should be in full quit mode, but these guys are the king of slowing the game down and getting you into a fist fight in a place you don't want to be. They did it to Ohio State to start the year. All that kind of stuff. That's something I'm probably not laying the points with Penn State, but at the same time, there's two options here. There's Indiana makes this a really, really low scoring game and makes it really ugly. And in that case, go ahead and take a look at the under. But on the other side, Penn State could also cover that over under just themselves because, again, you're dealing with a coach in James Franklin that knows the point spread and wants to cover point spreads. And against Indiana, he's fully capable of doing so. So, fade them at your own peril. Although Indiana loves ugly games. Florida State. Let's see where we're at here. Mitch Griffiths is seen in warmups, but does not look like he was not throwing. All the other guys were throwing. He was just stretching out. So I don't know if he plays. I was told that there's a big drop off between him and the second string kid. I can't personally attest to how big that drop could be. I know Mitch Griffiths will throw a lot of interceptions. He'll hold on to the ball way too long. He will find himself in situations created by himself that he should not be in. So I don't have the highest opinion of him, which really sucks because he looked like he was going to be pretty good in preseason. But again, Florida State this season has been a team where they're only good enough to beat the team that they're playing. They play up and down to their competition. We saw it against LSU. They looked like one of the best teams in the country. Then they played Boston College. I know there was all sorts of weird weather in that game, but they gave up 29 to Boston College. So it's like they're going to play to their opponent's level. And right now, I'm not at a point of trusting them to cover a 21-point spread, even if Wake Forest has their backup quarterback in there. That's just the way Florida State's been this year. So that's my take on it. I don't have an official play. I don't have a card on that. But if you're looking, there is a 21 floating in space. So if you're looking to fade Florida State, that would be the way to go. Otherwise, your 20 and a halves are pretty widely available with DraftKings being your best price at minus 110. Any other questions? I will take questions about any game on the slate here. I know it's a lighter slate today. Only 47 games. I believe that is a season low, just in general. Almost the same number as we have bowl games. But it's because all the entire max on bye this week for the most part before they kick up their midweek stuff. A lot of teams taking buys. Next week, I believe, is supposed to be a real big slate. All right. Well, if that's all the questions that we have, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me today. Don't forget to hop on over to our Discord server. I'll be active all day in there. If you have additional questions, you can help me there. You can find that Discord link on any of our articles at thelines.com or on my Twitter at Road to CFB. Please follow The Lines at The Lines US on Twitter. And if you're not subscribed, if you just ran across our live stream here, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to us here on YouTube. We have plenty of great shows all week long. I do a couple of college football ones with Kelly Ford. We break down probably close to 20, 25 games a week. So if you're looking for 9 to 10 minutes on each of those games, I have you covered over there. Of course, check out our other amazing shows we have here at The Lines, including Beat the Closing Number with Eli Hershkovich and Mo Nuwara, The Lines Megapod with Steven Andrus and Matt Brown, and of course, The Lines College Football Podcast with myself and Kelly Ford. But everyone, great luck with your bets today. Enjoy the football. Enjoy the snow football that we may have out in Fort Collins. We'll see you all next time.